Hey Eurovision fam, it's Alesia Michelle. I am so excited because today we're going to be talking about the American Song Contest. Yes, the American Song Contest. Now, before we get into this, you might be watching this video because you're curious about the American Song Contest, but you have no clue why I'm talking about it. Okay, I am Alesia Michelle. I have been working very hard to become Europeans' favorite American Eurovision fan, and here we are now. Now America has their own song contest. Let's kind of focus on the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning. When all of this was announced, when there was buzz and everyone was talking about the fact that there was going to be an American Song Contest. Now, I remember I did a video a couple of years back, I think 3 or 4 years ago, when the Netflix deal was done and we were thinking, okay, Eurovision is now going to be broadcast on Netflix, and is there going to be this American Song Contest happening on Netflix? Well, I guess that deal fell through, and then it became this thing that was sort of mythical where everyone would talk about it and go, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I really took the strong position of, you know what, I am not going to comment on it at this point. I've said my thoughts on what I thought the format could be or what I thought that the folks should try out. So I sort of made my position clear. But I was like, I'm not going to talk about this until it's a real thing. Well, now it is a real thing. Let's kick it off and talk about our host. Kelly Clarkson makes so much sense. I mean, we wouldn't have Kelly Clarkson if it weren't for American Idol. So she is so perfect to take on this role to kind of help other people potentially get their start. I mean, she's actually a successful American Idol winner. She's our first American Idol, but I mean, Boo Boo can sing, okay? Kelly Clarkson is actually talented. And I will say, even though I have not watched her talk show, it's really hard for people to kind of get on TV and sustain talk shows. There are so many failed talk shows out there, and the fact that she has just been able to kind of come into this talk show host role and just blend in and be herself, I think that this is really good. Now, I've already seen some comments from some of you who are like, Snoop Dogg, I don't get it. First of all, you probably don't get it because you have not seen Snoop Dogg host anything, and he's just great. He's just great. Snoop Dogg did this commentary at the Olympics, which I didn't really watch the Olympics, but I did watch Snoop Dogg watching the Olympics, okay? His show with Martha Stewart, so funny, so good. It really makes sense. And I'm saying all these things about him being a great personality, but also a bona fide, legitimate performer, rapper with actual longevity. He actually has a career. Some of these artists are novices, and to have the opportunity to just be in the same room and have someone like Snoop Dogg, be aware of who they are is huge. So the fact that we have Kelly Clarkson and Snoop Dogg at the head of this is really, really smart. Now, before we even really get into this, I think it's important to realize that the target audience for this show, I think, is really, really key. So if you know anything about American television or anything like that, it's really key to kind of focus on what the target audience for this show is. Because here's the thing. That's going to kind of dictate what our possible winner could be. Now, when I break down Eurovision, we've got tons of data of how juries have voted, how audiences have voted. So, we have all of this information on okay, where do we think people are going to go? What does this jury tend to like and things like that. With the American Song Contest, we don't have anything like that. And so some people might just be thinking oh, it's going to be such a surprise who's going to win, but I've got something to tell you. Okay, listen up, y'all. This show is tailor-made for people like my mother. Okay? My mom is a boomer. And so what does that tell you? Now, that doesn't tell you that we're instantly going to have something that sounds old. I don't think that that's what it is. But the song that we get winning this is probably going to have to be really well sung. And I think it is going to be something that feels a little bit more, I don't want to say traditional, because traditional isn't really the right word, and safe isn't the right word. But we're talking about boomers. Let me say that again. We're talking about boomers. So what that tells us is that the winner of the American Song Contest is definitely going to be, I think, a song that's going to have to be well sung, and it's going to be what I might deem a little bit safe. Now, not boring, but safe. I don't think that we're going to have like a message song winning. I think it might be something love based, but I'm not too sure if we're going to have like an electronic artist winning. Okay, like I think that this is going to be, definitely feeling like a singer-songwriter, and I think someone who has like some deep connection to the story, which is also what has been working on the Eurovision stage lately. So I think that that is something that's going to be kind of a common thread out of this, but I do think the idea that we'll get something experimental and arguably something that's hip hop based is probably not going to be like our winner. I don't think that that's going to happen, given the fact that I think the core audience of this show is going to be baby boomers. I think the secondary audience that I think NBC is trying to go for when we look at the celebrities that are going to be participating in the American Song Contest, we've got Macy Gray, we've got Michael Bolton, we've got Jewel, and we have Sisqo. Okay, like, that's actually not too bad. Like, I'm actually not mad at that at all. But I think that they're trying to pull in, I mean, Michael Bolton's probably doing like the boomer side of things. But those other three artists, I really see them kind of going for Generation X. And Generation X, I think, has some kids who are maybe teens or tweens. And so there might be this secondary audience of viewers who are at home, it's dinner time, and like your parents want to watch the American Song Contest. So then the high schoolers and the middle schoolers might actually tune into this. Now, that's not to say that there won't be millennials watching this, but I don't think that that is going to be the primary audience for this show. I think they'd be lucky to get Gen Z watching the show. And again, I think with the actual superstar performers that we have, they might actually be able to pull a little bit of that in. And then the fingers crossed with pulling in that audience is, okay, and then maybe we'll get some of their kids, so then this feels a little bit fresher. I don't think that we're going to have a ton of songs that are going to be like trending on TikTok. And I think the idea that a song that would trend on TikTok would influence like what ultimately wins the show, I just don't have a feeling like that's gonna happen. I don't know, and like there are probably people already in the comments like,
oh my gosh, Alesia, it hasn't happened yet, so just tune in and watch the show.
Look, we're having a conversation about what it could be. Like, this is the fun part. Like, we can start talking about what it is when it is. You know what I'm saying? The other thing that I want to note that I think is really notable about like the big artists that we have and the countries that they happen to be representing. Well, not countries. Oh my gosh. It's the American Song Contest. And I'm so used to saying countries because I'm so used to talking about Eurovision. But hello, we're talking about states here. So the states that our celebs, our famous people are representing are actually states that probably needed some help, okay? Like, I'm just gonna put it out there. Like, Jewel is representing Alaska, which completely makes sense. But Alaska was probably gonna need some help. You know what I'm saying? Like, Alaska might be the San Marino of the American Song Contest, just not a huge population of people. You know what I mean? So Jewel representing Alaska is good for Alaska. They probably need that. They don't have a huge population. So I think that that's going to work out pretty well for them. Next up, Sisqo's representing Maryland, which I think is interesting because Maryland, I don't think really needed help per se. I don't think Maryland needed help. But Maryland having Sisqo is pretty dope. I mean, Sisqo needs to be in the final. You know what I mean? Like, and I think some people, when they think of Sisqo, they're just thinking of like the thong song. But I mean, we might get a really nice 90s R&B track, and it will not feel dated. It will feel right on time, okay? I am definitely looking forward to the R&B track that Sisqo could be serving to us. But let's be real. He's going to want to have fun. So I don't know, we might get the thong song part 2. Next up, we have Macy Gray, who's going to be representing Ohio, which I love. 2 of my very good friends are from Ohio, and Ohio has some really, really great people. So I kind of love, like, Macy Gray for Ohio. Like, I actually think that this could be a really, really good move. And Macy Gray's, like, one of those artists that, like, I think people do consider her sort of like a 2-hit wonder, if not just think of her as, like, a 1-hit wonder. But, like, Macy Gray has actually been kind of consistently being in the studio, and I think she's just one of those really creative and unique voices. And so I'm really excited to hear what Macy Gray serves. Do I think that she's gonna win? No. This is so weird. I'm so used to doing this for like Eurovision, and it feels so weird to be doing this. The American Song Contest. We're talking states, 50 states battling it out. Who will win? And we got Michael Bolton for Connecticut, which feels so random. But again, Connecticut is a small state. But the thing is, Connecticut is very close to New York. You know, like there are people who like live in Connecticut and like work in New York. But it's something so interesting. Like when I heard Michael Bolton was representing Connecticut, I was just like, this just makes so much sense. And I kind of love it. So yes, Michael Bolton, Connecticut. But I have to say, Alaska, Maryland, Ohio, Connecticut, these are not the states that I think a lot of people are like checking for when it comes to like a battle of the states and like musical artists. So I kind of love the fact that like these celebs who have real careers and record sales under their belt are like repping their states because these states need it. These states need some help. Now I want to kind of talk about the states that I think that we should be keeping an eye on, because this is the thing. I think a lot of people are just going to go into this looking at like New York, California, and probably a little bit of Texas. You know, I think those are like some big markets, and people are just kind of going to laser focus, look at those, and just think that they instantly have an advantage going into this song contest. I'm going to tell y'all, back it up. Because these are the states that I actually think that we should be looking out for. Okay, so listen up. I'm going to kick it off with Virginia. I think a lot of people, it's still crazy to me that like people don't realize that like NERD, the Neptunes, Timbaland, Missy Elliott, like are from Virginia. It's just crazy to me that there are still people walking around not realizing that those folks are from Virginia. There's just a lot of really strong performers, producers that are from Virginia. And I think Virginia is this really interesting state where there's just a lot of different influences. It's both diverse, and I think musically it didn't necessarily have this pressure of like, if you're like a New Yorker, it's like, okay, New York, like you gotta like hip hop, you know what I mean? Like where there are certain states like, okay, like Nashville, Tennessee, like you gotta be good at country music. I think like there's sort of this wild card effect of Virginia that I think could be really yielding something really interesting from the artists representing Virginia. Next up, now this one's kind of an obvious one, but like I'm looking at Georgia, okay? Like yes, we know there's a huge music scene in Atlanta, but I am honing in on Georgia. I think Georgia is gonna serve something really interesting, so definitely we can't count them out. Next up, this one might surprise some of you, but Nevada. I don't know why, and it's not because of Vegas. Nevada is such an interesting, like, kind of wild card state. Not a huge population, but I think some of the isolation there can yield, like, really creative minds. So Nevada, I am definitely checking for. I want to hear what their artist serves. Next up, sort of in the same vein as this, there are 3 states where I just feel like it's a little bit quiet. You know, there's not a lot of eyes on these states all the time. But I think that some people might kind of count out these states, and like we shouldn't. So the 2 main ones are Oklahoma and Kansas, and then Montana. Oklahoma, Kansas, and Montana. I think that there is something much like Nevada, where I think with Nevada we might get some other influences like in play. So Nevada's a little bit different from these, but I feel like the isolation in these 3 states could really yield some creative minds where it's just like you can kind of tune out a lot of other folks and just focus on like what feels authentic and real to you. So those 3 states, I'm like, there might be something really interesting coming out of there. And then finally, this one, I mean, Tennessee, come on. So many people travel to Tennessee just to hear great music, to perform music. And Tennessee is going to yield us something. I mean, it probably is going to be folksy. It probably is going to have some country roots. But I think it's going to be really quality. It's going to be well produced. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on them. I know that there's a lot of you Europeans who are kind of like, will this make more Americans kind of interested in the Eurovision Song Contest? And I think it's two things. I think it could go kind of either way. On one hand, I think that the show, let's say it doesn't work out. I think people are going to go, okay, this didn't work out. This was crazy. Like, why would they even think of doing this? And then someone's going to tell them, like, well, it's based on this thing in Europe. And then the people tune into it and they're like, oh, whoa, like, this is what we were trying to do. I love this so much, like, more than what they were trying to do with us. So I think there's sort of that track of it. Then there's also the track that people watch it and they love it and they're like, this show is so great. And then they find out, like, oh, actually, it's based off of this other thing. And they're like, oh my God, well, if I love this, I would love this happening in some other iteration. And then they fall in love with the Eurovision Song Contest. So I think that there is a way that this still exists. I think that there is a world where people can love this show and then realize that the Eurovision contest exists and they're like, okay, I really want to like get into this thing. But I also think that there's a world, like, say that this doesn't work out, where people are like, that was a crazy idea. Where in the hell did they come up with that? And then they go like, oh, actually this thing. And then they go and like research Eurovision. They're like, this was so much better. Like, why didn't we just watch this? So I definitely think that this is going to help introduce more people to the Eurovision Song Contest, which is a win-win in my book. And then finally, I think the question on your minds is, will I be watching? And I'm kind of like, well, if I made this video, I guess that means that I'll be watching. Here's the thing that I feel like some of you Europeans are not going to like about the American Song Contest. I think the timing of it was pretty strategic. And just like they bring the Junior Eurovision winner on the stage at the Eurovision Grand Final, trust and believe. The winner of the American Song Contest is going to be on the stage in Turin. I don't know if they're going to have them perform or anything like that. They might just have them come out while the voting is happening, like when we do our recaps and stuff. But I am pretty positive that the winner of the American Song Contest is going to be in Italy. I feel like they would not pass up a chance to like show the clip of how the show went down and then show that clip of the eventual American Song Contest winner and then have them get on the stage in Italy. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that though. Like if the Junior Eurovision winner gets to go up on the stage, I don't think that there's anything wrong with the American Song Contest winner just getting up on stage and just seeing the scale of Eurovision. I'm okay with that. Okay, they're not going to be competing. Calm down, Europeans. We're not going to be competing at Eurovision. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But like, this is kind of exciting. It's a real thing. The American Song Contest is happening. Oh, we got to get excited about this. It's happening. It's real. Hey, if you love this video and you want to get into Eurovision or the American Song Contest, this is the moment. Please like this video and please subscribe.